Hello everybody, welcome to the second episode of the midweek molt. Thanks to everyone who tuned in and watched the first episode, even though it was only a little introduction to what we're going to be doing during these podcasts. Now, I know what you're thinking, wait a minute, last week it was called the Midweek Mayhem Podcast, and you know what? Even though it was a great title, I sat and thought about it, and I thought to myself, this isn't really tarantula related. Nobody that looks at it will ever know that it's about inverts, so I just decided to change it to the midweek molt, which I think sounds a lot better. Now, in this episode, I've got a couple of questions that were sent in by you subscribers who listened last time, and hopefully I can answer them and shed some light on your queries. And then after that, we're going to be covering negativity in the hobby and the impact that it has. So hopefully you stay tuned through all of it and you take something out of it. I mean, if you guys want to have a say on it, feel free to write in the comments and maybe we'll get to discuss it next week. So the first question I got was from James Price. Now his question reads, "Hi Robbie, my question would be, should you worry if you don't see your Fasorial Tarantula? I've got an adult Cosmia javanensis who I never saw for a year and a half, and the reason I was worried was because it was dry and there was no burrowing entrance and I feared she may have died. Then she reappeared and molted, then I rehoused her and she didn't hide again. Another example was my adult female C. Minax. I had her, I think, wild caught. She never burrowed, she would not eat, then molted and passed away about a week later. And now I've got a C. Von Worthy adult female, haven't seen her in 8 months, can't see where she's hiding, she has never eaten, so should I be worried?" Well, that's the thing. I'm going to say straight off the bat, Fasorial tarantulas are a type of tarantula that you do need to get your husbandry absolutely spot on. The thing is with Fasorials is, no, you shouldn't be worried if you never see them. They're Fasorial. Now, you've got to think, out in the wild, when they dig their burrows, they go deep down into the ground, 2, maybe 3 meters, and they never come up. The reason being, they have everything that they need inside the burrow. So in the wild, water will rise up through the soil, and that's where they get their drinking water from. Insects will burrow through and come through their burrow, like earthworms and stuff like that, so they've got a constant food source. So that's why I'm saying you have to get your husbandry spot on, because you've got to keep them lower levels of substrate moist so it can rise up into the burrow, and also with feeding, you've got to get the food down there into the burrow, which is why, you know, sometimes using mealworms and stuff like that is actually beneficial when it comes to Fasorials. I mean, you can do the normal feeding of like outside the burrow, they will come up and get it if they're hungry, but you know, 99% of their lives they are going to be down in that burrow, and if they're not hungry and not thirsty, you know, you are never going to see them. That's the thing with Fasorials, like, it's all in the name. So I wouldn't be worried about it, just make sure your husbandry is spot on, is all I'm gonna say on it really, James. Yeah, I mean, if you do see your Fasorial tarantula out of the burrow and come up, from my experience, 9 times out of 10, it's because they haven't got the moisture they need down there and they haven't got a food source, and as a last resort, they're coming out to find it. So you'll normally find them by the water dish or by a damp spot in the enclosure where they're sucking up that moisture, and once they've done that, they'll go straight back down again and you won't see them again. So it's not really anything to worry about. It's perfectly natural behaviour. Just just keep on top of your husbandry and it should be fine. You'll have no issues whatsoever. The next question, well, hopefully I answered that. So thanks, James, for your question. It was a good one. I enjoyed answering it. So secondly, we have a question from Annie's Arachnids, which was, how fast is a tarantula? And I had to look this one up because actually it piqued my interest, and I was like, you know what? How fast is a tarantula? So I got on Google, which is not really the greatest place to start researching, but it did come up with an answer. It said, on average, tarantulas move between 8 and 21 inches per second, which is really fast. If you think about it, they're ambush predators. They need that speed, that quick turn of speed to catch prey. But other than that, they're actually quite slow moving. So then that got me thinking further. If they move, I took the average of being about 15 straight down the middle. If they move at 15 inches per second, what is that in miles per hour? So after doing the calculations, it worked out to 0.8 miles per hour as a speed for tarantulas. So that was interesting to research, and yeah, so they're quick in short bursts, as everyone knows, but as far as walking speed, not that quick, 0.8 miles per hour. So hopefully that answers your question. So after getting them two out the way, we're going to move on to the main topic of today, and that's negativity in the hobby and how it affects it. Now, the reason I decided to write about this, talk about this in the podcast, is because on Saturday I released a video entitled "They're Not Just for Girls, All My Avicularia." Now, after putting that title there, which, let me explain first, was in my whole time in the hobby, there's been a constant thing of people in the hobby, when speaking about avicularia, if a guy says you should get avicularia, they're really, really cool spiders, they go, no, they're not manly enough, they're not, they're not Ferrophosa, they're not Grammostola, they're not Cereopagopus, they're not feisty. They always turn around and say, they're what girls pick up for their first tarantula, which I don't believe in. Obviously, I have quite a few avicularia. I think they're an absolute awesome species. Pardon me, I don't mean to trip over my words there. But yeah, they're an awesome species, awesome genus, and they shouldn't be overlooked. But here's the thing. Once I posted that, it was tongue-in-cheek humour, just playing off that whole idea that I've seen time and time again in the hobby. I had lots of people writing to me on like Instagram and social media platforms saying, oh, you're assigning certain tarantulas to certain genders now. That's disgusting. You shouldn't do that. And then that made me think, well, firstly, that's real negativity to be throwing at me for what I deem a joke and a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But then it made me think, you know what? There are so many people in this hobby that are so quick to judge and jump on a bandwagon and form a negative idea based on not really understanding where someone is coming from. So the impact that has on the hobby as a whole is, that sort of ideology, that sort of idea, that sort of mentality rubs off. Like, say a new keeper asks a question in a Facebook group or online, why is it that people first look at that comment and their first instinct is, oh my god, not this again? Why can't people go and do the research? Why can't they find this out? Why do they have to jump on here and we continuously have to answer these same questions over and over and over again? And I never understand that these people who, those pseudo experts, were once asking that exact same question. And if it wasn't for the older generations and the more experienced answering them, they would never be where they are. And that elitist mentality and that stupid, oh my god, why are you not doing research? These people are doing their research, hence the question. There's so much negativity that people are getting roasted left, right and centre for things that they should never, shouldn't even be made a fuss out of. Like, there's so many things in this hobby. There's so many like people doing YouTube and Instagram. Here's an example. The other day I was on Instagram and there was a video of a guy, and I believe he had a Samuelpaeus cambridgei in the enclosure, and he stuck his finger in there, and the cambridgei come up, gave a little nip on his finger, and you know, not only is that setting a bad example, because you know, if a new keeper sees that, they're gonna get ideas, they're gonna think it's acceptable to tease tarantulas, and you know that they're not going to get hurt, and you know it's all fun and games, and that's what it's all about. It puts a bad starting point for the keeper's knowledge or you know understanding of what tarantulas are. And not only that, the negative impacts of that are going to be if, say for example, bite rates go up, because just say for example, well, this guy did get thousands of views and thousands of likes from people that were like, yeah, that's great, you're brave, you're this, that. No, you're setting a bad example. And he didn't have the brains to think that if bite rates go up and more people go to a hospital or whatever because they're getting symptoms of, you know, nausea, headaches, everything you would expect from a tarantula bite, sooner or later the authorities are going to turn around and go, hang on a minute, what's going on here? And they'll investigate these animals and they'll be like, you know what, you need DWA licenses, they need to be regulated, they're going to put, you know, restrictions on the hobby and stop pretty much all of us being able to enjoy it just from their bad influence. You know, you've got YouTubers out there that their big thing is, oh, look at me handling this, look at me with this on my head, look at me. They are setting such a bad example, and all they're getting is praise and, oh, well done, that's awesome, that's amazing. Hardly anyone says, hang on a minute, what are you doing? So how can real negative behaviour like that in the hobby be praised, yet positive behaviour like asking questions, i.e. why is my tarantula covered up its burrow? Why does my tarantula need a water dish? My tarantula isn't eating, is there something wrong? Why do positive questions like that and real reasons and real things to be learned, then being put down and given so much negativity? That ties my head in knots. It really, really does. I don't understand it, and it's something in this hobby that I know myself and a whole bunch of other YouTubers spend their whole time trying to give the answers to these questions over and over and over and over again, not only to save people getting angry. They can just turn around and say, go watch this video, go read this book, go read this article, go listen to this podcast, because that's where you'll get the answers. That's what we're doing it for. Like, if you don't want to answer it in a positive way like that, don't answer it at all. You're making it so difficult for new people coming into this hobby, and it's really, really, really sad. I don't know how many of you have had bad experiences like that. I know me personally, myself, when I first started out in this hobby, I didn't have a Scooby-Doo what I was doing. It was just trial and error. I personally never thought to go into an online group or a forum or, ask anyone. So automatically I did have to start reading books and researching on the internet, and then eventually I got to YouTube and I was like, hey, wait a minute, there's a whole bunch of people with a whole lot of knowledge here. But even then, when I first jumped on to the YouTube side of things, I couldn't differentiate between a good YouTuber and a bad one. I mean, I watched a certain channel who I won't name now, who is terrible when it comes to keeping, really terrible, and does terrible things just for views. But at first I didn't pay any attention because I didn't know what was right and wrong, and if it wasn't for asking the questions, I would have never known that was terrible. I would have never known it was bad. So when you see someone asking questions, please don't give them negativity, and please don't big up stuff that you blatantly know is terrible for the hobby and is stuff you shouldn't be doing. I mean, that's not responsible keeping. And if you do think that's a good thing to be doing with your tarantulas, maybe you need to, look at another hobby, or, because it's not fair on the animals. Like, I don't know anyone's tarantulas like people poking their fingers in there and going crazy and having them run up walls and under sofas. I know I've had it happen in my videos. A tarantula has gotten out, it's run under the sofa, or it's run up the wall, and I feel terrible about that whenever it happens, because the tarantula shouldn't be in a position that it's that scared that it feels that it needs to run away. So I try now to, really make rehousings as controlled and safe for myself and the spider as possible. It's the decent thing to do. They're living creatures. Like, just show some respect. And everyone show some respect to new keepers. It's really difficult getting into this hobby, especially when you're surrounded by elitists and everyone has conflicting ideas in the hobby, and just let them find their way. Be as helpful as possible, because you was that person once, and it's not easy. So moving on from that, back to my video, the Avicularia video, I do just want to make an apology for titling it what I did title it. It was tongue-in-cheek humour, and I didn't mean to insult or upset anyone or have anyone get the wrong idea because I titled it that way. I'm not going to change the title because it's out there now, it's done, it's gone, I'm moving on from it. It's a good video. If you enjoy Avicularia and want to see the ones in my collection, feel free to go ahead and watch it. I will post a link to it or a card to it in the video. Just click on it, go and check it out, because Avicularias are awesome. And yeah, just stay positive. Keep positivity going in the hobby. We don't need it to get any worse than it has been. And we just don't need more bad influences. And if you do see people being a bad influence, please just don't give them more reason to do it. Because the more you like it, the more you applaud them, the more you say it's brilliant, the more they're going to do it, the more people that are going to copy them, and it's going to be never ending. So I'm asking you, just boycott it. Just, It's the best thing for the hobby. If you do that, there's going to be no long-term effects, and we will be able to enjoy these animals for years to come. And that's the most important thing. So if you've got any opinions on what I just said, just type them in the comments. I look forward to having conversations with you about it. I do reply to every single comment I get. I do enjoy them. And again, if you've got any questions that you want answered, then feel free to write them. And maybe next week, in next week's podcast, I'll get around to answering them as well. So that's my 2 cents worth on what I think about negativity in the hobby and how detrimental it is, and my own personal feelings on it. If you've got the same view, like I said, feel free to express it. If you disagree with me, that's fine. Feel free to tell me how you disagree with it, and we'll have a conversation about it, because like I said, sharing information, sharing ideas and sharing knowledge can only benefit this hobby. So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I'm going to wrap it up here. We've done 21 minutes. That's a good length, I think, for my second podcast. So hopefully I'll see you in Saturday's video. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, and I will also be doing the live stream for the 1.5k subscriber giveaway during the day, so make sure the bell notification's on so you get a notification so you don't miss that live stream. And I hope to see everyone in the chat. So until Saturday, I'll end it here. Take care and enjoy the rest of your week. Goodbye.